the budget hearing. Before I get to that, just want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded for later broadcast and is being broadcast live as we speak on local access television. So we're going to start our budget hearing with a presentation by the superintendent, and then we'll move on to questions, comments, clarifications, and discussion. So, Ms. Combs?
Thank you, Dr. Bergman. Welcome, everyone. It's so great to have folks joining us here in the audience, and I hope there are a lot of people out at home watching from the comfort of their living rooms or wherever that may be. And now the mic's on in here, so everybody in this room can actually hear me. We always begin the budget presentation, as well as the majority of our presentations, talking about our mission. And in Lunenburg, our mission is to prepare students for lifelong learning and responsible community membership. I want to thank the members of the administrative team, as well as Mrs. Curley, who's our business manager, and our data manager, Miss Carrie Cooper, and also Liz Peterson, who's my assistant over there, for all that they've put into this, because this document doesn't represent a document that I developed. This is about what the school community has come together to talk about with our broader community and present as hopes and dreams and the way that we see moving into the future and continuing to improve and provide relevant services and educational programs to our students. And I commend to you all of those students and our faculty and staff in the Lunenburg Public Schools. Every day they come to school ready to teach and learn, and they make a positive difference in their lives and the lives of each other. We are very proud of them and the outcomes that they are achieving. The budget for the school department really is a policy document. It is student-centered, it is based upon student number and needs, and while there are growing numbers and unfunded mandates that impinge upon the resources of the district as well as the community and state, we as educators always strive to meet those mandates via external sources whenever possible, and to redirect every available resource to our students and into the classrooms. So we wanted to summarize for you briefly just the fact that we really feel that here in Lunenburg, the community gets a good bang for the buck. You can see by some of the metrics we pulled up, these are all off the DESC website. They're all current, based upon a variety of reports that you can find up there. But you can see the performance of our 10th graders. You can see the percentage in our demographics that provide some diversity within our school. And you can see the per pupil expenditure. So overall, you can see that for the buck, the lowest cost of these that we've selected here, and certainly well below the state average. You have high college attendance, you have good middle MCAS results. While it's middle of the road, it is high performance, and we always are seeking to improve and expand the programs. Here's the performance of the class of 2015. A class that's worked very diligently, been good leaders, been hard workers. You can see there that their SAT performance is above the state average, and they're proficient or advanced in their MCAS performance as 9th graders as well. I wanted to share with you one of the boards that's up at the high school, just to give you a sense of where our graduates are going. You can see there's a variety of experiences, going to the military, as well as a variety of colleges, 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, other training programs. Some of those top-tier schools, highly competitive programs in other schools. They definitely make us proud and have been really diligently working towards this, and we're looking forward to the spring and a really nice graduation season, shall we say, because it does start and run for a while. So while I'm talking about this vibrant community, I happen just to pull together a few of the visuals of our teachers and of our students and what they've been doing. We have a vibrant teaching and learning community within each one of our schools. Every day, the students and teachers are focused not only on content knowledge and skills, but more importantly on high levels of learning, analysis, critical thinking, and problem solving. The faculty and staff in each of our buildings continue to improve curriculum, instruction, and assessment. They're refining and aligning to the Common Core. They're creating curriculum maps. They're creating common experiences. They're closely examining our assessments to establish district-determined measures at each grade level that will identify student growth and drive classroom instruction. We are a data-based decision-making organization. A safe and respectful environment for everyone is our top priority. We focus on the whole school, whole child, and have worked hard to develop supports for students in the social-emotional development. Students learn peer mediation, conflict resolution, they build resiliency, and they develop coping strategies. We use responsive classroom, developmental design, and coming next year, an advisory program at the high school. Students embrace diversity, and they support one another. The Best Buddies and Big Sibs programs are two examples of activities that support the inclusive environment that Lunenburg is known for. We have a number of activities and programs that foster academic growth and connect students, ensuring a wide variety of activities to engage student interests and tie them to the community, which is central to our mission. This year and the next, we have provided professional development opportunities to teachers across the district to expand community service learning units. New units that are coming on board include awareness and support for our veterans, a community health fair by students, time capsule project, an East Box Turtle project, and these will join well-established projects related to invasive species, the Empty Bowls, Hunger Task Force, coat drives, food drives. The list really does go on and on. In addition to before and after school academic support, a variety of opportunities are provided for students. At the primary school, there was a Fun in the Winter, the Lego Club, and also some cooking clubs. Last night, there was a delightful family night, math night, that many families came out for, in which third graders helped teachers implement and share different math games in classrooms for parents. At Turkey Hill Middle School, there's student government, yearbook club, a variety of after-school physical education activities, school dances, and Spirit Week. I don't think we'll forget too soon the wonderful fundraising project at Turkey Hill Middle School, where students had the penny wars, and Mr. Santry turned his hair pink and then shaved it off. That's an essence of the community that we build and the spirit that exists within our buildings. At Lunenburg High School, there are 27 clubs and activities for students to participate in. There are 21 varsity sports, and the only thing lacking for students is time. We're proud to be able to offer the opportunity for our high school students to follow their interests and try out activities. Ours is not a high school where we ask students to specialize. Ours is a high school that we ask students to try and expand and learn about new and different things. New this year was the Robotics Club, with faculty members Also working with the high school students in that club to go over to the middle school and support the Legos Club there. We have rich traditions around homecoming and competitive class plays, which have been lost from so many schools, but continue for our students and our community here in Lunenburg. Of this, we are very proud. Many of our programs cross schools, creating rich multi-age opportunities for the students. All of these things are what makes our schools a great place for our students to be, to learn, to grow. Our students are involved, they're engaged, and they give back to their community. And it is for this reason that we develop a budget and make recommendations of how to expend the resources that are provided us. So this year at this budget meeting, it's developed over time, and the budget I'm presenting tonight is a level service budget. It provides for the same services as we provided last year for our learners. The only increases are related to contractual increases or loss of revenues, which would necessitate us bringing in additional resources that were otherwise last year or this current year paid outside of the operational budget. It also provides the resources to enhance our curriculum work that we've been doing and fill the necessary gaps in our instructional materials that we've been hard-pressed to fill for the last several years. We know that what happens in education happens in the classroom, and we have been focused throughout the time period to make sure that we are supporting the classroom environment with excellent teachers, and also making sure that the resources are provided that support them in that work. We've made investments in technology, as well as expanding our services out to help provide the supports that a more diverse student population requires. This particular budget still is more than what the town manager's recommended budget is at this point in time as adjusted. It's about $190,000 off. There is a proposal on the table that the town manager has offered to the Finance Committee and others of utilizing some one-time funds that are coming to the community to help support the purchase of $116,000 worth of instructional materials that will be current materials for us to use and last at least 5, and most of them up to 10 years before they need replacement. We also anticipate receiving other supports to the educational program. We see that our choice program will continue. You can see in FY15, there was about $200,000 that came into the district, which supported some positions as well as some material purchased for our schools. Next year, we anticipate that to be decreased based upon the cherry sheets from the town, or from the state, by about $27,000. So we have, in our budget development, made sure that we're anticipating expenditures that are going out of those particular grants and other funding revenue streams to ensure that we're not overextending ourselves and ending up in a problem when the fiscal year ends and the next one begins, making sure that we're making those projections based upon the funds that are right now projected to be available. We will continue to adjust those as more information becomes available, just as we continue to adjust the budget that you have before you since we started in November with presentations based upon information that became available. We have special education grants that this year are coming to us in the amount of $370,000. Once again, those support special education personnel, as well as materials and consultation services that are necessary to keep our special education program strong. We are, at this point in time, anticipating an increase in that of about $12,000. So that's what it's projected out at this point in time. Title I support provides instructional support to our learners who are the lowest performing students, and we anticipate to continue to receive at least this amount of money, the $131,000 next year. There is some indication in some of the reports that we have that may be increasing, because we've seen increases in the percentage of students that are living at the poverty line within our community. We won't receive those allocations, however, until late June or into July. So at this point in time, we're holding with this projection, which is the same amount that was received when we, for this fiscal year. And then we get a little bit for professional development and new teacher mentoring. That comes in the form of the Title II grant. It's a federal grant. And that we utilize to support professional development, targeted professional development around the district, as well as provide for our new teacher orientation and mentoring program. So that's an overview of the other resources that are anticipated to be used that are outside the general operation budget and outside the line item budgets that you have available to you at this time. I did want to note, as we did at the Finance Committee meeting, that we are anticipating revenues not to be available in FY16 that were available in FY15. We have continued to do that planned step down around the non-residents, the Shirley students that have paid tuition to us for many years. That program's coming to an end. Next year we'll have the last 2 students with us enrolled. That money hasn't been allocated at this time, but between the reduction in choice and the reduction of moving from 5 students paying tuition to 2 students paying tuition, there was a loss of $54,000. That the things assigned to that, those monies have been put into the general operation budget at this point in time. Also, the state kindergarten grant was taken out by the governor in House 1, while there was an increase in Chapter 70 of about $90,000 over the projection that the town manager had made. 47 of that was immediately lost in terms of this kindergarten grant. Now, I can say that a lot of people are advocating very diligently to get this money put back into the state budget. It's another area where we'll wait and see. This paid for a portion of a salary for a kindergarten teacher. It paid for a portion of a kindergarten paraprofessional. And that money at this point in time has been added into the general operation budget because it appears right now that that money won't be available. And the need for it continued. We continue to need 5 kindergarten teachers. I would not recommend to the committee an elimination of kindergarten paraprofessionals. We are anticipating at this point in time, we already have 111 students that have registered for kindergarten. Our experience is that will increase by at least 10 and possibly more by the time school actually begins in the fall. Our registration numbers are always lower than what our actual enrollment is in the fall. And also, last year, as we worked to close the gap between the school budget and the town's available funds, the solar revenues were made available to us to help support special education placements and tuition placements. and those have now been, the solar project, I know that money flows a different way now, so that won't be there as a set-aside expense. But what it paid for, that budget line actually, those expenses are still there, and so that is seen as a loss in the bottom line of revenues for us. Enrollment really does drive what we do and how we allocate resources in the buildings, as well as by student. You know that our class size in grades K through 8 is currently averages 25 students per class. It's a range of 22 to 28 students per class. Class size in grades 9 through 12 averages 18 students with a range of 7 to 26 students. Some of our AP foreign language classes make up that lower number in terms of that range, while the band and music classes and those sorts of classes at the high school certainly have 30 or more students in them. I've provided this summary to you so you can see that I've highlighted 2 areas that we had originally targeted to hire an additional teacher in order to lower those class sizes. You see grade 3 at 130 students and grade 5 at 136. We had hoped next year to hire an additional teacher at each one of those grade levels in order to bring those class sizes down. I anticipate that those numbers will hold or even possibly grow at this point in time in a level service budget, though there's not an additional teacher for either of those classrooms. So they'll remain with 26, 27, 28 students per classroom. When you're able to look at these documents online and up closer, I wanted to make sure that you had this view of class by class. You can see the October enrollments across the 3 years, and then you can also see where we are as of March 31st of 2015, so you get a sense of some of the increases. This year, it's been interesting because more than ever before, we've seen movement in and out of our schools. Our population is more transient than it's ever been in the past. Since the beginning of the school year, we've had 52 students that have enrolled with us. We've had 49 students that have moved to another community during the school year as well. So we see this number turning over from class to class and grade to grade. And that gives you an indication of just the number of students that we've had going in and out. Overall, there's been this net increase in terms of our enrollment since October 1. I thought it might be helpful because we have had this discussion on numerous occasions about our enrollment trends and where we're going. So what we did with this particular visual is broke up our classes according to their current configuration. So it's pre-K through 3, 4 through 7, and 8 through 12. And we went back and aligned those classes all the way back. Now, we were in a different configuration a few years ago when we had 4 buildings, but to show the pattern in terms of our enrollments, I thought it was very important to present it in this fashion. As you can see, that we've come down at the middle school level and pretty well stabilized, and stabilized over the year as well. Those last 3 data points are actually for the current year, from October to January to March. If you look at what's happening at the high school, the low enrollments, certainly from Shirley, as well as lower enrollments from Lunenburg residences, those class sizes diminished. We still are seeing a slight decline at the high school, and even during the course of the year have seen that slight decline. Where in the primary grades, we're really starting to see that uptick and a trend developing of movement up in terms of the numbers of students enrolled and enrolling over the course of the year. So these enrollment trends are really important for us to continue to monitor and be responsive to. It's one of the reasons we suggested that the 130 students at a grade level be the marker for us in terms of a recommendation of looking at additional teacher. To be honest with you, when we get into our buildings, I think a more appropriate number to look at is an enrollment of 125 students to talk about another teacher. Because with 125 students in a class, you have, or in a grade level, you have 25 students per class. And that's a big class, given the diversity, given the demands, given our desire to make sure that our learning is as interactive and hands-on for students as possible. So that is our enrollment trends. The other trends that we're seeing are related to our subgroups. And you know, last year we talked a lot about the need for us to be responsive to our small but growing linguistic and cultural minority population. And that includes our English language learners, as well as students whose first language was not English. Our ELA staff has provided not only support to students, but they've also provided support to staff this year, and they worked to develop procedures and good practices which strengthen our ELL programs and also provide continuity district-wide to families. Staff and administration have also been involved this year in retail training throughout the state and in our district, and they've had many positive experiences as a result of the training. Our Title I population is also growing. We see there that once again the Title I students are the lowest performing in reading and math in the primary and elementary grades is how they're selected. There's an upper limit to that based upon the resources we have to provide those services. That was one of the reasons we were looking for additional paraprofessionals, extended daytime for them. But I wanted to share with you that our preliminary census data, the data that was used for our Title I allocation for school years 14 and 15, the number was 131 students and the percentage was 7.36. The preliminary 2013 census data, which will be used for our 15-16 Title I allocation, is 312. That percentage is 17.82%. So a significant increase as we look at our students in Title I eligible by means of their low income status. We're seeing that those same kind of numbers related to our free and reduced lunch, which is we use the federal definition for free and reduced lunch to qualify that low income status. And there are now 329 students in our district, or 19%, that are on free and reduced are free lunch, and another 33 that are on reduced lunch. So that brings our total population at this point in time to 21% on free and reduced lunch. And that was the March 31st statistic. We continue to develop and expand programs for our schools to meet the needs of students with moderate to severe disabilities as well. And we're committed to providing those opportunities. We have a long history of developing programs within our school environment that meet the needs of a wide variety of students and students with moderate to severe disabilities, as well as those students with mild disabilities who we're serving across the board in inclusionary settings. I really want to commend the work of our educators in supporting all the learners. You can imagine in a classroom a teacher with 25 students, and 3 of them are English language learners, 4 of them are students with disabilities. We differentiate, we modify, they enrich the other students in the classroom. They at times will have another 2 or 3 adults that are in there supporting students and supporting the educational program. And every day they make it work, and they make it work well for our learners. Our students continue to make gains and continue to advance. And that's really a testament to the teachers and the administrators and the paraprofessionals and other support staff that are part of this district. We've made adjustments across the number of staff that we have over this time of declining enrollments. Just wanted to put up this slide and show that for FY16, we're planning on that level service, so no new additions to this in terms of full or part-time personnel. If we put someone in, we're taking something out. And you can see how over time we've adjusted to the resources as the financial crisis hit, as we lost revenues, and how we continue to adjust the educational program, and thought of ways and worked on ways in cooperation with our parents and the community to continue to provide the kind of quality program that Lunenburg is proud of and is known for. This shows you how our numbers began to, this is student-teacher ratios, and this is at the DESE website. You can go there and pull it directly from there as well. And you can see the different levels of student-teacher ratios that we have across the district at this particular time. You can see that ratio continuing to grow. We don't feel that this is sustainable, and we feel that we really need to work with our community to determine how we can address this continuing trend of higher numbers of students working with teachers. Some of the other things in our environment that are influencing our expenditures of funds, I wanted to show you here. And it's this is a good story. This is a very happy story because this is the year that we had the opportunity to put in a program that will meet the needs of several of our students at the high school who we were finding needing out-of-district placements because they had been hospitalized, they had other kinds of situations that were going on that made it difficult for them to be successful, and we had no program for them. Our transitions program we put in place as school began with the promise and working very diligently with 2 parents who said, we want to be in Lunenburg, you have a program, we'll return. And with that, students began to return to the district. And since that point in time, we have served over a dozen students in this particular program, and 50% of those would have been needing out-of-district placements, or we would have been in litigation with parents had we not had that program in place. And I really want to commend the leadership of Ms. Hanscom and Mr. Spadafino and the teachers at the high school in embracing this program and making it work for our students. And I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to do what we had done 2 decades before in terms of building programs here in Lunenburg to meet the needs of our students. And that's our primary goal. A side benefit is being able to start mitigating the number of dollars that are going out in out-of-district placements. And you can see there how those totals for out-of-district placements grew as our class sizes increased, and also as the needs of our learners changed. It's been a very stressful several years for our community, for our nation. And that translates to stress and anxiety for families, and that translates to students coming to school not ready to learn, but carrying the weight of many adult matters with them. Our transitions program and the good work that our counselors do across the district with these students is once again a big positive difference, and we are very happy to have these students here, and we look forward to developing more services and programs. That was why we had suggested another behavioral specialist in our district, because of the work that the BCBA does to support our teachers and our students, and making sure that those students can transition back to the district from out-of-district placements successfully. She's been able to support classrooms and provide professional development to teachers as well as paraprofessionals and parents as well. I often see her at the Passios building after hours, working with parents on home programs or going out and visiting. That's the kind of work that makes a difference in the lives of children and in the lives of families and in the lives of communities, because it provides us an opportunity to remain together as a community and help support and meet each other's needs. So we had recommended a behavioral specialist be added as well. We know at this point in time there's not available funding to do that, but we will keep working for ways, just as we did with the classroom that we added, the transition program, to see where we can repurpose funds, not by laying off one teacher to hire another one, but by taking advantage of the opportunities that come up. If we can return students to the district, to leverage those funds forward to serve even more teachers. I think I shared with you the loss of some of the revenues, how that impacts. It impacts kindergarten teachers and paraprofessionals across the district. We are at this time proposing putting in the custodial position. We feel that it is a critical position. In talking to Mr. Londa, who's here, and all the principals, and Mrs. Hanscom are here tonight to assist in answering any questions the public may have about particulars with each one of the programs. It's that position. We just had a resignation from a custodian, and so it is our recommendation that we put the maintenance position in, and at this point in time forego the custodial position that will impact the high school part-time and TCP part-time. But this position the maintenance position is so critical for us, particularly as we begin to work into the new building and learn all those new systems that are in that building and how to operate them. This was a position that we've been trying to get replaced into our program for at least 3 years now. And we're glad for this opportunity to be able to do it. We'll also make sure that we implement the advisory program at the high school. Our high school faculty has worked this year, looking at that, worked with the administration, worked with me in order to figure out how we can do that. They have put a lot of time and effort, and we all recognize the very valuable benefits that come out of advisory, the opportunities for more of our students to develop that connection with adults in their environment, and adults who will be able to provide supports, provide advice, provide referrals, as the case would be, but really make sure that everybody feels connected to their school through that educator. It's a natural progression from responsive classroom to developmental design to the advisory at the high school. And I'm very excited, and I'm very appreciative to the high school administration and the faculty for making it a reality. And we're going to be there to do the last step which is provide, at least via substitute, the paraprofessional that's necessary in order to provide the time for our teachers to do the advisory program. One of the other areas we are also seeing some increases, just increasing transportation costs. Even though that we're reducing the number of students going out, special transportation continues to rise on us. We also have homeless transportation that's required in this. And we really have worked diligently. You saw that we were able to take it down for at least 1 year there with a contract. But then it continues to grow up. So we're continuing to look at ways to be in collaboratives and make sure that we manage these costs and get them as low as we possibly can, of course, while maintaining safe and appropriate kinds of transportation systems for the students. Obviously, the fewer students that we have going out, the lower the transportation costs will go as well. So just in a nutshell, those things that I discussed, the special education transportation is certainly a driver for us. Our curriculum adoption that we talked about, adding to that delta that we have between the available funds at this point in time and the school needs. In curriculum adoption, there's a lot of textbook replacement we haven't been able to do. We have an AP Spanish class that we absolutely must replace the textbook in. It's 10 years old, and AP requires, if you're going to remain an AP class, we have 11 of those at the high school. I think that's great. That's something to be proud of, and we look for more through virtual high school. Providing and making sure that all our students' needs are met. And so we want to make sure that those programs continue. Curriculum adoption, if you look through the spreadsheets over time, you'll see that that's an area that we've really shortchanged for the last several years, and we just are no longer able to do that. Some materials and supplies, those are defined in the handouts that we've provided at the website as well. But those are additional textbooks and maps and those kinds of things that at the primary school, that's a replacement of the handwriting without tears materials that we had to eliminate last year, that has been such a great handwriting program that integrates well with the English language arts in terms of working with our students. And the health insurance was, I think, we knew it was coming in terms of an increase. We'd had great renewals for some time. When we built the budget originally, we were hoping for about 6 or 7%, and as I think everybody's aware, it came in at 10.9. And so that's the bottom line in terms of the amount of increase that we'll see with regard to health insurance. So the impact of a level service budget for us is that at this point in time, there's no reduction in class size in grades where the class size is currently 26 to 28. And specifically, that would be next year's 4th grade and next year's 6th grade. There's, from our perspective and from the evidence that we have, insufficient number of specialized support personnel available to better meet the needs of the students. I described to you the classrooms where we had hoped to be able to put additional paraprofessionals. We understand that's not in the budget, and we will continue to look for ways to be able to do that. We'll continue to look for ways to perhaps extend our paraprofessionals' time to after-school time to provide that support and instruction for students based upon classroom demands. And we're also looking at the lack of consistency in personnel, because we had several positions that are currently being filled by substitutes that substitute paraprofessionals that we had hoped to move into full-time positions because we anticipate the need for them continuing. We will continue to meet the letter of the law by providing personnel. This impact really does challenge service fidelity and certainly strains capacity, because what happens when we have substitutes doing this work instead of the consistency of the person hired to do the job day after day is that there's a lot of retraining of new staff as they come in, getting to know the routines, getting to know the specialized program. All of those things have to be repeated every time we change whoever that substitute is. And we continue to worry about that need for out-of-district placements. We continue to look for ways to make sure that that trend starts going back down again. As we indicated this year with the transition programs, it turned the corner. We are hoping that if we're able to put a behavioral specialist in, that is another big step in terms of maintaining and keeping students in school and in our community. So just to list some priorities if funds do become available, and I leveled these all out because these are all top priorities, I think, across the district and by school, would be to have that BCBA. We would need to add some paraprofessional time at the primary school. I think right now we're carrying at 4 substitutes in paraprofessional roles at the primary school. At the middle school, certainly the classroom teachers for the 4th and the 6th grade would be our top priorities. And at the high school, we'd like to reinstate that English teacher that we weren't able to maintain and hire after retirement last year. And that will expand instructional time for our 8th grade students, as well as add 1 elective to the course offerings at the high school in either English or history. Currently, we have a teacher who teaches part-time history and part-time as an English teacher. Licensed, certified, fully in both, but is living in both of those worlds at this point in time, and we really would recommend that we replace that and be able to expand out some instructional time for our 8th graders, as well as put that elective in. Our budget timeline, you can see where we started there in November with presentations and how that built up to a recommendation. Superintendent's recommendation was made in December. School committee proposed a school budget then in January. FinCom presentation was in March. Here we are today with our budget hearing. And then coming up, of course, will be the town meeting, and the final budget will need to be in place by 1 July, and that will need to be a balanced budget that's in place by July 1. There is still some, there always is some certainly dynamic aspects of the school budget in terms of students, who moves to town, who leaves town, what the state budget may look like. Would choice change for us in terms of the number of students we'll be receiving? Those are all variables. How do those budgets work relative to our federal budgets? How are those going to come in? Are we going to see more money there that we can leverage against these priorities? And all our budget documents, the next slide, the final slide, which doesn't seem to want to advance, is basically a screenshot of our budget page at our website. And all of these documents, this presentation was put up there right before this evening's budget hearing. We are certainly available at this point in time to move to questions. But before we do that, I just want to again say to our students and to our teachers, bravo for the work that you do and for having such a wonderful, hardworking climate and environment and respectful environment in our schools each day. And thank you to the parents who support us in so many ways with fundraisers that make sure that our students are able to go on field trips and have some special presentations. And for the community at large, because I know this is a community that values education, that we're all working to figure out how to make it work for all of our citizens. And I just want to once again reassure you that your dollars are well spent, and your dollars are going to the classroom and supporting students, and we're supporting and working very, very hard to make sure that all our students are meeting the mark and advancing and heading for a bright future. So, thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Combs. And we'll now move into our question and answer section. We do have the entire administrative team here. All the budget documents, as you can see, have been available in various forms and levels of maturity for months. So we're ready to answer any questions on those right now. If you have questions, please just step up to the microphone, let us know who you are, where you live, and we'll go with the questions. Hi, Carl.
Good evening. Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. Just some clarification questions and then maybe some follow-ups later after I figure. But first on I mean, clearly salaries drive the budget to a significant degree. Are all of the salaries that are in this budget, are they already fixed by contract or agreement, or are there any of those salaries that are still...
Right now, I do not believe any of the salaries have any wiggle room left, right? They're all contractually obligated.
Okay, so we're already...
Yep.
Okay. Because to me, that looks like about a 3.5% increase on the average, and that certainly chews into a lot of what the town has available to begin with. So there isn't much left of to go around. On the SPED side, in some of the things I read, and I compliment Loxie and everyone, there's a lot of good data out there and a lot of good explanations, and it's tough keeping up with all, I'll tell you the truth. But I seem to remember in one of the write-ups that there was unanticipated SPED costs that were put in the budget. And I thought it was something like $100,000. Is that still in the level of service?
Yep.
Okay.
Carl, thanks for pointing that out. I should have done that because every year...
Loxie, if you don't mind the microphone.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
There is, as I indicated at the Finance Committee presentation, and I appreciate you reminding me because I forgot to mention it here, we did put that into the budget because we always have unanticipated expenditures that come up as students move into our community. I know that one citizen at the Finance Committee asked, well, what do you do if you don't spend it? And I replied, we've never been in that situation that we haven't needed it.
Thank you. Could you tell me where it is?
It's in the private placements line.
Private placements line. Okay. Great. Thank you. There was also a comment in one of the write-ups, and maybe it was clarified tonight, but it's not quite equal, that there was a $129,000 income, I think, funding issue, and the words were used, due to non-resident student funds. Does that ring a bell? And so I didn't hear anything about $129,000
That was actually,
tonight.
yeah, that was in there, Mr. Luck. That was a little bit earlier when Ms. Combs discussed the reduction in students coming from Shirley.
Right.
Right, and so that was in an earlier slide.
Yeah, that was like 54,000.
Right.
Not 129.
The revenue was 54,000. What was in that fund was 100,000,
What is the loss of revenue?
54.
54, okay. And that's,
But there was 100,000 of salaries out of that line, because that was in a revolving fund. And to pace this down, we always carry over a certain amount in order to get into the next year before the money starts flowing. Because it's a revolving fund.
but how much was moved into this budget that used to come out, the 100? Okay, and where was that moved into?
Paraprofessionals, high school.
100K, okay. And in the insurance increase, beyond the 10.9%, how many new insurance policies are assumed in that increase?
There are three family insurance policies that are assumed in there based upon retirees, one of whom does not carry insurance, and we anticipate replacing that position, and two that carry single insurances, and we anticipate, we put it in at family, not knowing that if it will come in at single. So that's how it's in.
Great. Thank you. On the slide that had the staffing, with no increases from 15 to 16 because there's no new ads, but it was the 15 head count, was that what was in the FY15 budget, or is that what is actually there today? Because I know during the year there were 2 people added. So where were they?
They were in,
They're in the 15.
they're in 50.
Okay, so the 15 head count is not the FY15 budget head count.
The head count in the district for FY15 is what you saw in that line, and it includes the 2 new teacher positions.
Okay, but they weren't in the FY15 budget.
Yes, they were. We took the money from the tuition savings
Right.
and moved it into the salary lines
But that
in
was,
those positions.
but that was after the budget was approved. That was after May of last year.
The line item transfer.
Right.
Right, during 15.
Right.
So the FY15 budget, the budget that the town approved last year, did not include
The town only approves the bottom line.
Yeah, right.
the budget that was presented to the town. The head count that was presented to the town didn't include those 2 positions.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I do want to address those 2 positions.
Talk about those 2 positions.
Yeah, because I'll just be a little more clear about those positions. So the funding that we used to fund those positions came from a recurring account. It was a non-personnel account, but recurring doesn't imply personnel only, right? So tuition lines are recurring dollars. So we had an unexpected savings in tuition dollars, which is recurring, and we moved it into an investment in 2 teachers, which is also recurring. That $100,000 investment, we estimate, has saved us $500,000 this year. That's a recurring savings, right? So we didn't only save $500,000 this year. That's why you saw that rollover on the out-of-district placement costs, right?
Yeah.
That was due entirely to the investment that we made. So I know there's been some confusion about exactly what we did, and some confusion about the nature of the funds that we moved, but we clearly moved recurring funds to recurring funds. We made an investment that bought down costs in 15, and it bought down future costs to the tune of about $500,000 a year. So over the 10-year life, we expect that the average student tenure here is about 10 to 12 years. That's a $5 million savings that we're looking at.
Yeah, if you hadn't belabored that 500,000 so much, I would have stayed silent. But every time I hear the savings, which nobody can identify or dispute, it goes up. I mean, last time I heard it was 200,000.
So you can go look at the...
Brad, can I comment for a second?
$1.7
Can I just real quick? So, as someone who works for a large corporation, if she stays within her budget and she adds 1,700 headcount, I don't care. Right? To be frank, I think I'm trying to figure out what you're getting at. I'm going to finish. You're questioning 2 headcount when we stayed within budget. Why?
Well, that's very customer friendly, I guess.
No, listen, you're up here asking,
I'm just trying to understand the budget.
I get
and
it,
where
but I want to know
comes
what what are you asking? What are you getting at about the 2 head count?
from. I simply asked if the numbers up there were the budgeted head counts or they were
Okay,
the actual head
that's
counts.
for clarification, but the way the questions are coming across is it is coming across slightly accusatory, right? So what I'm trying to figure out is if you're just asking for clarification, that's fine, but if there's some other agenda here, just lay it out, right? Just say, hey, I don't trust the fact that you can manage this budget. It's just not coming across as genuine.
I'm sorry, I started the statement by saying I was looking to clarify some of the budget items so I could then determine what questions to actually ask. So
Fair.
thank you for the opportunity to clarify. That I'm simply clarifying, and I didn't dig into these 2 people at all. So, never being dissuaded. Just the last question on the curriculum adoption, easy to say. Is that mostly, I saw textbooks, is that mostly textbooks or just what's in there? It's mostly textbooks. Yeah, that's cool.
Long service life,
Right.
novels.
Good, thank you. I will be back, but my intention really is, I think we could do better than we're doing. I think everybody can do better than they're doing, no matter how good they think they're doing. It bothers me that we're not able to find the money to fund those teachers to get those class sizes down. I honestly believe that there may be money in here to do that, but I can't point it out unless I understand what's in here and what it's being used for and how relative, how is that relevant to everything else. So I'm here to try to get more value for my tax dollar for the children of the town. So I don't appreciate your opinion, and I'll sit down now and come back.
No,
later.
listen, it's a very fair question, but just the way the questions were coming across was coming across somewhat accusatory, right? It didn't seem like it was just for clarification purposes.
Okay, I think I'll step in. I think if we can all be respectful, that will help all of us tonight as we try and get through this. Are there any other questions that people have, comments, feedback?
Phyllis Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. I'd like an explanation of the MS and the high school retirement longevity, because that's $80,000.
That's a contractual agreement where we have, for all our teachers, they have the opportunity to collect $5,000 a year for 3 years. If they meet a certain number of years of service. It also funds our master teacher program, and our master teachers are doing a variety of curriculum projects across the district, and for that they're paid a stipend of $5,000. So that's where a lot of our, and once again, longevity is connected with that to be able to fund that. So if you contrast those payments with what a director of curriculum would be to the district, we really are able to expand our services as a result of those. Our master teachers are also providing opportunities for students. The robotics program comes from programs that a master teacher operates, as well as the after-school program. Right now, 2 teachers working in the after-school program at the primary school are master teachers. So that's what those lines are, and those are contractual.
Let me understand the retirement. So how many years does a teacher need to work in the district to be eligible?
The contract, I believe, is 18 for longevity and 15 for master teacher. Oh, 12 and 15, sorry.
So if a teacher is taught for 15 years, the last 3 years that they teach, they get an extra $5,000 a year?
May I, Ms. Combs?
They have to apply for it.
Yeah. So,
and there's a maximum amount that can be paid out.
right. So it's a complicated question, and I think it's a good question. The subtlety is we have in one box, we have this master teacher dollars. They all have the same name, and what we call the longevity payments, right? So teachers have an option. When they get to 12 years, they're allowed to apply to be a master teacher. They have to apply to the superintendent with a program that they will implement. It may be some new enrichment opportunity for students. It may be development of curriculum for the next year. It may be training other teachers on use of technology. There's an incredibly wide range of things that people come to the superintendent with. If and only if the superintendent approves the master teacher request, meaning that the project is appropriate, matches our school goals, does good things, then there's a $5,000 stipend for that year. If the teacher chooses to follow the master teacher program, they can start that after 12 years, and they can do it every year that they present an acceptable program to the superintendent that she accepts within the caps that we've outlined in our budgets. For the faculty who choose not to do the master teacher, they do have an opportunity after 15 years, not in their last 3 years, but in any 3 years following 15 years, to get a $5,000 a year bonus, or it's a longevity payment for 3 years. Many teachers who don't do the master teacher approach would use that if they have a student in college, or, as a way to help.
So the people that do the master teachers wouldn't be eligible for the other?
That's right.
And it's any 3 years, and it's
any 3 after 15.
after 15, there's nothing required of them? They just have to apply for it?
No, so we've been, the teachers have been really engaged. We introduced the master teacher program 5 years ago. Maybe it's been longer than that, yeah. And gradually we've been seeing great involvement from our faculty, and we've been shifting the fraction of dollars that are spent on master teachers versus the longevity payments as we move along, mostly because that's what the teachers are interested in.
And you certainly get more bang for your buck that way.
We certainly do, and they're allowed to, there's not a 3-year limit on that. So if they start at 12 years, and if they have great ideas and want to contribute wonderful things, they can do it until they retire 60 years later.
Well, that's
Okay.
a good idea. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I just had one more question on on the secretary's line. Two of them are like 47, 48, but in the high school administrative secretary, I guess I'm assuming there's more than one person, because it's $82,000?
So there were 2 people there. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments, feedback, suggestions? Hi.
Paul Menard, 67 Electric Ave.
Great.
I think that a lot of the questions and comments that I have, some have already been answered, some probably addressed outside of that. I have a fourth grader and an incoming kindergartner next year, so some of these numbers about class sizes and things like that are particularly relevant to me. My fourth grader asked if he could go to bed right after dinner, because he was so excited, because MCASTs are tomorrow, and he wants them here sooner, which I support but don't necessarily understand. The idea, though, that it is the individuals, the teachers in the schools, class sizes specifically, are so important and so relevant. And the balance between the non-academic budget drivers, transportation, electricity, looking through the line items in there, sewer, trash disposal, all that stuff goes up. That finding the balance between the things we have to spend money on and the things we want to spend money on, I'm preaching to the choir. So I guess if I have a question or a comment, it is, does school choice, does special ed needs, do all of those things, and the fact that they are so flexible, weigh more or less on how we choose to allocate our funds? Because the other side, what I hear a lot of support is AP programs, the special programs, all that kind of stuff. Maintaining those consistently. My concern, I guess that's really what it is, not a question, it's a concern. I don't think a level budget is going to do it. all those other costs go up. And if we're spending the same amount of money on electricity, which costs us more, the money's got to come from somewhere else. And the only place I can see it coming from is the teachers and the staff and the materials. So I guess that's my concern. That's my fear looking forward. We've got to figure out a way to increase our budget. I would support that with my tax dollars and other things. Whatever I can do to help out, I do at home with the boys. So I don't know. I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
There it comes.
Good evening. Karen Menard, 672 Page. I guess I'm looking for a clarification on a couple of line items in the budget, and then just sort of an overall high school comment. I noticed on the budget for primary school guidance counselors and high school guidance counselors, it looks like the level funded amount is actually a decrease. Are we losing guidance counselors? I'm just trying to figure out why that is. I didn't know if we were cutting something or...
We're anticipating some retirement.
Okay, which makes sense. Now on the high school level, we talk a lot about class sizes in these 4th and 6th grade class, whatever they are. I have a high schooler who has 2 class sizes that are extremely small, and part of me wonders, are those classes worth having? I'm sure there's benefit to them, but I guess my question is there more benefit to shuffling them around so that we can try to get that 8th grade ELA teacher, or we can move that money so that it's down at the middle school level? He's got 2 classes. I just texted him and asked him. He's got one that has 12 and he has one that has 13. I would just assume that those numbers would be more beneficial in the 4th and 6th grade than the high school level. So that's just my overall thought.
Brian, would you like to address that at all, or?
I'm not sure exactly which classes, but I assume some are elective classes. Both are elective classes. So that's just, a lot of that is driven by the schedule itself and how things fall out and where kids are able to sign up, and it becomes choices. And fortunately, students have the choices to take a high level or high interest course like your son may be taking now. And sometimes those sizes are smaller in those interest areas, and we try to offer lots of different things for lots of different students, and that's one of the byproducts, unfortunately.
Right. One of the things we think, I believe it's been our philosophy to maximize choices for our students and to have as few students as possible in study halls, because that's not productive time. Right. So we'd much rather have a student try something they've never done before and learn something completely different than to be sitting in study halls. And so if we start eliminating opportunities for electives, what we're doing is taking choices from our students and putting them into study halls. And it's our belief that that's not in the best interest of the high school students either. So we do weigh those trades every year, right? Every time we start this budget, I know it's long and painful, certainly long and painful for all of us up here, and Ms. Combs for sure. But we do look from the bottom up, what should we be doing this year? And we do consider whether we should be making reductions in one school to move staff to others. And it's the best judgment of our professionals that the balance we have right now, even though it's not optimum, is, given the staffing opportunities, what we should be doing.
Mark Erickson, Peninsula Drive. I just want to respond to the comment from the former speaker with regard to the budget that's being presented this evening. It's a level service budget, not a level funded budget. I think that's an important distinction that, that we all need to understand. And I would like to go back to the staffing ratio. The chart that was shown is through fiscal 14, and the comment is that this is an unsustainable trend I don't dispute that, but I would counter that we added 7 FTE in fiscal 15. So I'd be curious what that chart looks like if we were to extend it into fiscal years 15 and 16.
The DESE, I was trying to keep the data consistent with what was at the website, and they lag behind, Mark, because there's different ways to do staffing ratios, and that seemed the safest numbers to draw from, because the way we would answer that question is, that's how the state calculated it, okay? So those were the numbers that we were using there. And if you go to the DESE website, it will actually break it down, and you can see how it plays out with regard to primary versus middle school versus high school as well, and state versus others. So you can look at those numbers. Those were the numbers, that's where those numbers came from. They're all from the same source, the same file,
right.
And I'm assuming the same state calculation as a result.
Yeah, I think my point is that the trend is not sustainable. However, with the adds to staff in fiscal 15, we've changed the trend. The other comment that I would make with regard to the enrollment, it was enlightening to see the chart that breaks out the high school being in decline, the middle school being relatively flat, and the primary school growing, because that's our future of enrollment, particularly with a new high school, middle school, high school. One would think that would attract additional students in the lower grades, and that bears watching.
Absolutely.
That's why we pointed out that particular information, because it's an early indicator, and we may not be able to do anything about it now, but I'm not sure how long we can avoid doing something about it. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Mr. Luck.
Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane again. Yeah, just a few comments. Try to look at some of the numbers, and again, these teachers, to get the class size down, to me is a primary target that we should be looking for. So when I look through opportunities, and I hate it when people just say, you should be able to find it without at least some suggestions that you can throw out or consider. I mean, it's $125,000, at least from my looking at the kind of those two teachers with insurance are about $125,000. We just identified that in the SPED contingency, which is always used, but is always found too, even when there hasn't been contingency, it gets covered somehow. There's $100,000 there. I believe, and I'm sure there's something I'm missing, so none of these numbers will be exactly correct. But when I looked at the insurance, it looks like there's an extra $50,000 in insurance. When I take the 10.9%, I take the 3 new ads, and I look at what's left, there's about $50,000 I can't account for that's been added to insurance. So maybe there's something there. Maybe it's half that, I don't know. But I think you might want to look at that calculation. Choice, it wasn't much mentioned tonight, but we're funding 90 students that are going out of town here, and they're costing us $530,000. If we could just bring back 5% of those, and a lot of them are new, and I'm told are tied to people moving into the apartments, and the kids don't want to leave school. So those, to me, would be prime candidates. I haven't heard anything, and you can't go on all night with everything you're doing, but I haven't heard anything about trying to get those kids back in. If we could get 10% of those kids back in, there's $50,000, plus having our children back in the community, which is a big benefit. So to me, there's some opportunity there. It takes some work. It takes some people calling parents. Why don't they understand that this is a better school?
Do you mind if I address that, Mr. Luck? Okay.
Well, I might lose my spiel here. So
do you want to keep going through, and then I'll address that?
If you forget, I'll remind you.
Okay. Yeah.
So if we could bring back, 10% of those students, which is only 9 students, there's $50,000 we could bring back into the community. If we could get these 2 teachers, I'm led to believe that there are actually parents out there who have children choiced into our school now who would love to bring a couple more in, but the reason they can't is because we don't have those two teachers and the class sizes are so big. So that's $12,000 right there that we could get just by adding those teachers. They kind of pay for themselves a little bit. So I add all this up, and there's, almost $225,000 worth of opportunities to offset that 125 to go get it, and things that can be identified, worked on, and committed to between now and then, because I know you can't find it in the fall and then get the teachers. You got to do it between now and then. So that's
Okay,
why I
so
think
let me
we
see
could-
if I can
we
go
could
through
do
these
that.
one at a time, and I may have to ask you to refresh
happy
exactly
to.
what you said, because I may not remember the right order. So on the question of the funding that we have in for special ed unforeseen placements, that money is almost certainly going to go away, because you may remember that our level service budget and the funding available from the town manager are not the same, right? So they're out of bed by about $120,000, $130,000, right? So that's my understanding.
No, I think it's about 74,000, to tell you the
Okay.
truth, with the ones, assuming the 116 comes in.
So I'm not willing, I have to say this. We'll discuss this further. I'm not willing to put some of those one-time materials into a potential maybe we'll get them account, because, for example, if we need to buy AP textbooks at this point to maintain an AP class and maintain certification with the AP, we really can't afford to not buy those, right? Otherwise, we're going to lose accreditation, and those students will not get AP credit, and we've promised them that for the past 4 years, and so a number of the things that the superintendent put into the bucket of things that could be funded under that one-time dollar chunk, since those dollars are not certain, we need to assess whether it's really prudent to put them into a maybe they'll be funded bucket. A number of those things, I think, have to be funded this year. And the only way to do that is to move them back into our budget and not leave them out as a, maybe they'll get cut thing later on. So I don't, given that funding is uncertain, I would say that a small fraction of that at best is actually of use to the district, because we tend to wait so long to replace things for fiscal reasons that the things we need to replace, except for maybe a couple of chairs and desks, in my opinion, the committee will vote, are sufficiently critical that they need to be funded this year and can't be placed into a high-risk funding pool. So I don't think there's a whole lot of benefit from that $118,000 that would come out of Chapter 40S at this point. There is still a standing discrepancy between the funding that the town manager has available and this level service budget, right? I think most of the, certainly that wipes out our special education reserve protected fund, plus a substantial amount more. We'll go back and look at the
Insurance?
The insurance. Sandy's incredibly meticulous, so my guess is that she's right, but we'll verify that she's right. She's been over it a number of times, but I certainly am not going to say that there's $50,000 in there that Sandy hasn't accounted for, because she has the actual data, and again, she's very meticulous about such things. So I don't think that finding the dollars are quite as easy as you are implying. I think we're still so far away from a level service, our ability to fund ourselves at a level service way, that it's going to be difficult. Regarding the choice, everyone agrees that it would be better if more students came back to our district, but the challenge we have right now, Mr. Luck, is we have students who are telling us that they're going to choice out of our district next year because our class sizes are too large. So we're fighting a rearguard action. We don't have the capacity necessarily to go and bring students into our district who've never been here. If we continue at this level of service, I think we're going to have a increasingly difficult time retaining students and maintaining our choice posture as it is. So I think it's unrealistic to believe that we'll be able to pull 10% of the choice students back. I'll just be happy if we can maintain the status quo. And Ms. Collins, please feel free to modify anything I said.
Look at that, and we invite the students of Lunenburg to come join us because it's a great place to be, but we do have high class sizes. And as I looked at the grade levels, particularly below 8th grade and below, where the students were, if the students returned to us, we'd be at 24 students in every classroom now, if they all came back. So, it's working that challenge as well, and even using choice to fund teachers to lower class size is a really tricky balancing act, because even if we're able to put in that 4th grade position, our class sizes would still be 22 even after the additional teacher were hired.
Depends on
And we grow every year, so when does that 22 increase to the 25? And once again, we're talking about, needing to hire yet another teacher. That's the point that I want to make about choice is it's like trying to keep the Shirley non-resident piece going, which went for many years, and then what happens when you can't do that anymore? So we always try to supplement and help with that, but I would hate to become dependent upon choice in terms of operating the district at the level that it needs to be operated.
It costs us $12,000 a year to educate a student.
Yeah.
The choice brings in $5,000, I think.
And they pay out $5,000.
Right.
Yeah, or we bring in $5,000.
We would bring in $5,000. That's not that's not a net benefit for us.
Yeah.
Only when we're very carefully, if we carefully balance where we create the choice slots, we can leverage that.
The choice that I'm more concerned about is the children that are choicing out. The choice in was a fringe benefit.
Right.
The ones that are more interested in it is not only why are so many choicing out, but how do we get them to come back in?
Right.
I would hate to think, I hear this 12,000 number thrown around, I would hate to think that everyone that we're hesitating to bring them back because it's only costing us $6,000 to send them out, and it costs us $12,000 to come back. So this 12,000 number is...
No, that's not at all what I'm saying.
I'm just saying, it gets thrown around in one direction, but not the other. So the point is bringing kids in.
We pay $12,000 to educate a student, and when a student from out of Lunenburg comes here, they only come with $5,000. So Lunenburg takes $7,000 loss on that.
On a student.
That was the way that $12,000 was being thrown around.
And while
Unless there's no additional personnel costs, that's how it works.
And what-
If we can use a choice slot for a seat that would otherwise be empty in an existing classroom with an existing teacher, then the economics make sense.
And while I may have disagreed with you before, I have got to say this is something I've been on for quite a while now. Phyllis, you've been here to several of the meetings where I always ask, what can we do to bring the kids back to the district? Because ultimately it isn't about the cost, it's about the quality of what they're getting, right? Whether it's the time they're spending going to the other district, whether it's what we deliver here. I mean, there's so many impacts. So I think you're asking the right question. It's how can we address it in the right way that's going to be the best for the student, and the balance, to your point before, the balancing act that we have with the budget, right? How do we address all the students' needs without, paying $1 million in electricity, right? I mean, I think it's a tough question, but it is the right question to ask, because I've been asking it for a while.
Right, but there's a very subtle, important word, right? We've been talking about bringing students back to the district. The challenge we have is not students that have been in our district and left. It's students who have never come into our district.
Yep.
Right, and so this is a new thing for us. It's only been in the past year or two that this has really been something that Lunenburg has experienced. Our population has become more transient than it was, And when people move into the district and don't bring their, move into the town, don't bring their children into the district, that's a very difficult, they've made a decision that they think is in the best interest of their children, and we don't even know who they are. So it's very hard to fix that problem. And if anybody has an idea about how to crack that nut, we'd love to hear it.
It's certainly a new issue. We saw the downside of it already with the surprise this year. But now that the downside is known, to me, it's an opportunity to go find out and learn. Nobody knows, but learn. How do we find those people? How do we find the parents? How do we convince them that, this is the great school it is? And they're silly to be sending their children somewhere else. Just then, last thing, and I'll sit down and let everybody. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would like to add one other thing is that the other part of that is there's a strong desire for parents to provide stability for their children. And so if you're moving in the middle of the year, the thought of uprooting your child and moving them to another district is one that not everybody looks at as a positive. And if they're provided the opportunity to stay wherever they are, I think many parents make that choice if they're able to manage it in terms of the transportation, just for the stability and the educational program.
I guess I was looking for the brighter side. To me, that's the potentially good news, because I understand if they came in the middle of the year, the disruption's terrible, and that's maybe why they left them behind. But now they've been here. It's a new year. So now we should go get them and convince them it's a new year. It's not a transition issue. Come on back. Come on in, not back.
We've begun that process of making connections with those families now that
Great.
we have their addresses and confirming that. And we'll certainly be reaching out to them and having these kinds of conversations. It is, it's something we want to know about and understand more. And we've certainly had conversations about how we might, we've talked about multi-age classrooms, we've talked about different ways to do that work around lowering that class size, and we'll continue to do that as educators. I have to say sometimes the new standards and rigorous demands make multi-age classrooms a bit more difficult, I think, for our instructional staff than it has been in the past because of being driven so much from those particular grade level curriculums. But we'll continue to pursue those options as well.
So my last comment as a taxpayer, primarily. And I know there's no increases now, but I know the initial proposal was 15 paramedics, and I'm not an educator, and I don't want to question paramedic. Paramedic, yeah. I'm sorry. It's the place.
Any paramedics?
Thank you. No paramedics, please. Standing by over there? Okay, aside. The one thing as a taxpayer and a businessman, ex-businessman here, is the concern I have with paraprofessionals, again, is not their capabilities or what they can do for us, but is the value proposition. Paraprofessionals, when you take my tax dollars and hire a paraprofessional, 50% of the tax dollar goes to the insurance company. And that, to me, is just not a good value proposition, that we should be really trying to get teachers and paraprofessionals where they really, really make a lot of sense. But, as a stopgap, it's a really bad deal for the tax dollar. 50 cents on the dollar is not a good deal.
Okay, so I have to say we have never considered paraprofessionals as stopgap members of our community. They're essential members of our hands-on teaching environment, and I would invite any of our administrators at the other end of the table to describe the model that employs paraprofessionals.
Sure, I'll talk about paraprofessionals. We have, they actually take two different roles. Some paraprofessionals are in our general education classrooms. They're supporting all learners in there, not just students with disabilities, but maybe some students that are having a little difficulty picking up the assignment. But then we have other paraprofessionals that are mandated by IEP plans that are student-specific that we are mandated to provide for those. So hiring a teacher in order to take that paraprofessional position isn't the best bang for your buck. It would be a paraprofessional that needs to do that work.
I'd also like to point out that many of our paraprofessionals are actually certified teachers. That a great many, because of the economics of schools today, many young folks are coming out with teaching certifications, and there's not a great number of schools that are expanding teacher positions at this point in the world. And so we have many very qualified young people coming out of schools and working as paraprofessionals. And we've had paraprofessionals in our schools that move on to become teachers in our schools.
It's not, and again, I'm not questioning the capabilities of paraprofessionals or the good work that they can do. I'm just saying from a value proposition point of view, it's not the best one I've seen.
And I would counter that by saying that it is the best, because what we're doing is we're using highly trained individuals at a cost that is cost effective for the service delivery.
Right. There's also one point I'd like to bring up, and this isn't specifically related to your comments, Mr. Luck, but as we talk about staffing ratios and populations, it's very important to note, Ms. Combs put up a slide and she did talk about the numbers, but I'm not sure how much impact it had on people. If you look at our demographics, we've had our English language learners, our limited English proficient students triple in the past 3 years. Triple. Okay, our low-income population has doubled, and our Title I, which are the low-income students who have particular educational needs, those have also doubled. Those are very large numbers. So we have the same number of teachers, effectively, and paraprofessionals, or very close to that amount, working with a much broader demographic category with much more challenging students. And so the simple numbers of students per teacher or teachers per student don't tell that story. It's very important for our community to understand that Lunenburg is an evolving demographic, right? We aren't necessarily, we certainly, I can tell you I grew up here in the 70s. We're not the community where we were in the 70s, and we're not, based on those data, the community we were in fiscal year 2012. Okay, you see that if you look at the limited English proficient population, it went from 8 to 10 to 28 over a couple of years. We went from 40 to 50 Title I students to 100-ish. And if you look at the low-income students, we went from 150, 160 to 360 students. Those are really substantial demographic shifts, and you have to keep those in mind. The push, the pull on our educators' time and our school psychologists and our guidance counselors and all of those support people is really dramatically increasing, regardless of the school population. The total numbers don't tell that whole story. So I hope everyone can keep that in mind as we do our best to support our administrators and our educators. We're asking an awful lot of these people. We were asking a lot in 2012, and we're only asking more today.
And Dr. Berthune, to speak to that, though, is how I began the presentation for the FinCom, talking about the amazing work and the learning that is going on for all of these special populations as well. This diverse population, and we're making a difference. We're making a difference in their learning. We're making a difference in their lives. And that's what we're charged to do, and that's what we're going to continue to do. But it has meant approaching our work differently and having different resources available.
Right. Any other questions, comments from the board, table, administrators? Anybody from the audience that has anything else they'd like to offer? Okay, if not, then we'll close out our public hearing on the budget. And we'll move on with the rest of our agenda. If anyone would like to take the opportunity to go do something else, then we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. thank you all for coming tonight. Okay, and because we had an error in the agenda and we forgot to put school building committee on here, I'm going to defer my chair's report and let Mike give a school building committee report instead.
The good news I bring tonight is that because of a little moderation in the weather, we've begun to pick up some time that had been delayed because of the horrible conditions of the cold and the snow over the last couple of months. Last week we did complete a pour of the slab-on deck of the second floor. There were 30 runs of 10 trucks that ran from roughly 8 in the morning until 5 at night, with workers finishing the finishing grade until midnight. We were at it again today. We will be at it again next Wednesday, doing the long days until we've caught up, and we have all belief that we will catch up that time. So at this point, we're feeling pretty confident that the project remains on schedule, except for those items that, as I said, have been delayed. We continued the steel erection, as I said last week, it has been completed. That means the outside framework. In fact, what's going on right now is they're completing, the kind of punch list items for Area C, which is the middle of the building, and Area D, which is the middle school wing, and those would be completed by next Tuesday, when they actually will sign off on that part of the job. Begin work on some detailing in terms of the steel on next week for the auditorium, and that will continue. At this point, they are continuing to heat. As you see some of the photos here, this is, if we could go, this is the Area A, that's the high school wing. Right now they're laying down stone and compacting it. On top of that will come a insulation, rigid insulation, and then a vapor barrier, and then they will then do the slab-on grade pour, which will complete the concrete pouring for Area A, or Building A. And they've also done slab on deck for the second floor above the offices, which is those classroom areas above the offices between the high school wing and the middle school wing. So thus far, we continue the project on schedule and
on budget.
And on budget. Hasn't been a single change order requested. We will be meeting again as the school building committee next Wednesday night. It's open to the public. I'd invite folks to come. It's over at TC Passios, room 13. And we'll actually get a presentation from a group of students from the middle school regarding their request to place a time capsule at the new school. And we have had discussions around it. One of the things that we have looked into and we'll be presenting to the building committee next week is for the addition of an outdoor classroom. We worked with our landscaping company, and they didn't think that it would add any cost to the project. So basically it's a landscaping addition that creates a space where students and teachers can meet. It would include an encased whiteboard that could be used, some power for any electronics that they might need, and a place for seating in a shaded area. So that'll be presented to the school building committee next week, along with the time capsule, which will be incorporated, and right now what we're talking about is incorporating that into the plan of the outdoor classroom.
Sounds
Well, with weather like this, they might be able to use it for a week.
the end of June.
I can go out with snow pants.
Yeah, they can use snow pants, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Anything else, Mike?
I think I've covered it all.
Okay, great. So we have warrants on the table. There are no minutes tonight, but the warrants are there. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Do we have any line item transfers, Ms. Collins?
We do not tonight.
Okay. So we're up to the superintendent's report.
Didn't we just have one?
Somewhere in my bag down there, I did bring some of the handouts from last night. It really was a very joyful occurrence to have that family math night, and our teachers put that together in a pair of professionals, and it was just a night they gave back to families, and so I appreciate everybody that came out and participated in that. Once again, you know that our students are in production for Guys and Dolls, and we hope that all of you will join us for that when it airs. Best Buddies has been raising some funds to support some of their ongoing activities, and one of the master teacher projects that we've begun to discuss with Mrs. Proctor for next year is using a concept of Best Buddies, because we always have more buddies than we have students to match them up with. Our students at the high school are such involved, engaged, and caring individuals that we're now talking about that being a nice model to use with regard to our more culturally diverse and non-English speaking students as well, to help do some cultural exchange right at the high school. So those are the kinds of projects that Master Teacher Program has really brought to the district, and it's been a very good program for our students, and really taps into the great strengths and expertise of the teachers, and new opportunities come with that for our students, and that's what we're all about, making sure it would happen. So that is, MCAS is underway across the buildings now, and our students are prepared and ready to do their very best, which we know they will. It's just one of those things that happens in schools now. So that's where our focus has been. And where April break will start on the 18th of April and continue for that ensuing week for this year, and then return back. And then it's a race to the finish line with all the graduation and other end of school kinds of activities. So lots will be going on in our schools, and we hope everyone will come out and join us.
It's always an exciting time. Thank you very much. So we're up to old business. We have our diversity committee appointments, and so we did adopt a policy a couple of meetings ago to implement a diversity committee here at the in the district, and we have a number of volunteers. So I think it would behoove us to appoint that committee tonight.
Okay.
Do you want? Yeah. Okay. Would you like to read it?
Well, Dr. Berthium, you're going to serve on that committee, so I'll just let you do the honors.
So the people who have volunteered to participate are Richard Beardmore, who is a member of the community, Charlene Stevens, also a member of the community, Barry Charbonneau, who is a 5th grade student, Paul Menard, who has a 4th grade and pre-kindergarten student, Winston Burrell, who has a student in 10th grade, Michael Battle, who graduated, Lynn Radford, who is a member of our staff, Peggy Proctor, who's also a member of the staff, and Luis Lozano Melendez, who's a high school junior. So those are the people we would recommend for appointing to the Diversity Advisory Committee.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt that slate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Okay, just like to thank everyone for volunteering and being willing to participate and put their time into that effort. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. That is appointed. I've lost my agenda. All right, so we're supposed to talk about, our next item on the agenda is the TC Passios and Brooks House release. And so I mentioned last week that the Building Reuse Committee is looking for dates where they could meet jointly with the school committee. I did send around an email looking for some opportunities. It looks like our best opportunities right now are the 9th, 16th, 28th, or 30th of April. And I've heard from Ms. Collins, Ms. Soroka, and those dates work for me.
Yeah, I just sent you mine.
I did too. Let me go back and look at what they are.
Sorry, if they came after 6:45, I was here.
Colleen, you were almost the same.
Yeah, I think I was very similar.
Yeah, I was just, Tuesdays and Thursdays are great.
Really?
Yeah, so most of mine were Thursdays.
Yeah, and anything, for me, anything after 7.
So 7 p.m. is, okay. We'll
7 p.m. I can get here.
I don't know what days of the week these are. I had 9th, 16th, 27th, and 30th.
9th, 16th,
Ninth.
and 30th are Thursdays.
They're
Or
Thursdays.
Thursdays, okay.
All right, so why don't we, can we agree on the 9th, 16th, and 30th, as long as we meet at 7 o'clock or later?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, I'll convey that to Mr. Toll, and so they're meeting on Monday, the 6th, and I'm sure that's when they'll talk about what works for them. And when we hear back, I'll let everybody know. It's actually going to be kind of hard to get the 9th, just because of posting requirements.
Right.
But
Oh, because they won't meet till the 6th.
they don't meet
Right.
till the 6th, it's hard. So it's more likely that we'll
Actually,
meet
you know
on
what,
the
Greg,
16th.
I can't do the 9th, I just realized that, so.
Okay.
that-
We'll just recommend the
16th
16th
or
or
the
30th.
30th.
Oh, no.
All right. And now we're up to new business, and we have a request from, I'm sorry, I don't want to pronounce this name wrong, but Mr. and Mrs. Agnesi regarding school choice. Are you here? Would you like to join us up here? Come to the microphone.
Televised.
You can shift that around as you need to.
Yeah, feel free to just wiggle it. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. We weren't expecting to come up. We had communicated via email.
Yep.
And we're enlightened by a lot of things that you brought to our attention tonight, and we were just exploring the school choice option, and we're wondering if was it all possible to expand that into elementary level?
In listening to some of the things, first of all, I'm a special education teacher myself, and there's never going to be any extra money in special education. It's going to get used plus some. Just looking at your numbers and some of your goals as a committee, and I don't know the reason for this, but looking at once students get to middle school, why the numbers are going down there, and it seems like continuously you're accepting in 7th, 8th, 9th grade school choice students. I think this year it was 20, and there weren't many filled. So the fact that you were willing to offer 20 and talking about the cost difference of 5,000 in, 12,000 out, there has to be some benefit there, not just looking at the negative, because there's so many schools that continue to take children in. And if it was hurting them, they would stop. As far as the class sizes, I don't believe anybody's going anywhere, because as a teacher and looking around through this process, the class sizes are the same everywhere. Not knowing the specific numbers of teachers you have, I know that would play into it, but I know you were looking to expand in 4th grade. That's where we would be going. So we would just like you to reconsider your options. And I know your one goal as a committee was to look for ways to continue to add money for students and busing and things like that. And knowing the cost difference, as we said, from $5,000 to $12,000, there's got to be something there where it is a benefit. So we would just like you to reconsider and think about it.
Okay. I just want to briefly clarify. So we did offer 20 open slots, and that was at 8th and 9th grade this year. And we tend to lose students at that point because they go off to Monty Tech. That's a very common place for the VOTEC students to move off. We make that decision every year, how many choice slots we're going to open based on the population of the class that is coming in. So that's not a a standard number. It's something we think carefully about every year, and class size is a critical piece of that calculation. Just so you understand that, we're not arbitrarily just opening 20 slots. It's tied to when students are likely to leave the district to go to other opportunities. Ms. Combs, would you like to, anything you want to?
No, I just want to thank you for your interest in our schools. We are very proud of our schools, and you're right, we have open choice slots, particularly at the 9th grade level, and since the 8th grade's been at the 9th grade, or at the high school, we've tended to open there as well, because we do have that decrease from that 8th to 9th grade level, and our goal always is, we like to have the families come in and be part of our learning environment as soon as possible. And also, when we have families that are here under choice, and if we were to open at another grade level where they had a son or daughter, they're given a preference for coming in because the goal is to keep families together, just as you've expressed, trying to keep families together. But it comes down to the class size for us, and with class sizes of 26, 27, and 28 in the grades that you had asked us about, particularly that 4th grade level, at this point in time, I can't make a recommendation for that. If we are able to figure out this budget and add a teacher, then I think we need to reassess it at that point in time.
So there's currently 5 teachers and you're looking to go to a 6th?
Yes.
That's our
With
population.
120 students? 122?
That was second.
Trying to think of class sizes.
128 and 136, right?
130 and 136. 136.
Okay, I was just going off the DSE
130,
numbers.
130 in 3rd grade.
136, something like, yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was 2nd grade. Second and
grade?
4th grade that you had asked about.
Second grade
Yeah, you have
lower.
Right,
Yeah.
1 year lower, but the 4th, going into 4th grade, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
2 going
Yeah.
into 2nd, and
So
1
our
going
current
into 4th.
3rd grade is 130 students.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Oh.
The 3rd grader going into 4th.
So potentially, the 2nd grader is a greater likelihood.
Well, right now, I have to go back to the screen. I don't have 2nd grade firmly in my mind in terms of the enrollment right now. But that is also, I believe, that class is setting at least 22, 24. I think it's 122. I think that enrollment is 122 for 1st grade going into 2nd grade.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
In your email, you had said, that that the current 1st grade was 24 to 25 students per class.
Mm-hmm.
So that's right around that 122.
Yep. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
So if anyone wishes to make a motion, now would be the time. Just offer the opportunity. Okay, thank you. All right, public comment. So somehow I screwed up the agenda and I forgot to put an action on the FY16 budget on here.
I thought we put it.
I did too, but it's
Yeah,
but it's
it was
gone.
posted that way.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to just take this opportunity in public comment to talk about the 16 budget, and I'll encourage anyone else who has anything to offer to join in. So if we can manage to get a level service budget this year, I think that's about the most we can hope for. I'm not confident we can achieve that, frankly. I think that's not in the best interest of our students. I think we've conveyed clear need for additional staff to reduce class sizes and improve our educational opportunities with the goal of really reducing some of the achievement gaps we see and making sure everybody gets the best possible education they can in our district. And so my recommendation last week was that we should request an override this year. I think it's clear to me that that's an unlikely thing to happen. More importantly, I think it's critical that we get on everyone's radar that next year, given that we're having challenges this year, we will anticipate the same sorts of challenges coming up next year because that's the way the world works. And we do anticipate some increase in staffing will be necessary for the new building. I think it's essential that everyone keep in mind the possibility of a need for an override next year. I believe the problem is not that the town is misallocating their funds. I think the town manager is doing an outstanding job. I think every department in the community has a claim on more funds than they have available to them. What I believe the problem is, when I look at our roads and I see the limited number of police we have available, the lack of full-time ambulance service, and knowing full well what goes on, what challenges we face in the district, I think the pie needs to be bigger. The simple math is that as long as the cost of living, the cost of running things stays below 2.5%, a community can never have an override and maintain a level of service. That's not the reality we face. If you just, we've had some really fortunate years with low health insurance increases, but 11% increase this year is, a couple $100,000, which is a giant chunk of change for us, for the town as a whole. So I think we need to start advocating on behalf of our school early next year, with the likelihood that we will need to request override funds in order to have an adequate education in our new building. That's my 2 cents. If anyone else at the table have anything they want to volunteer?
I think, so it is increasingly difficult to fund everything in the town. I think I look around the room and I see taxpayers up here, I see taxpayers sitting in the audience to whom we recently went and said, please give us more. We need a new school. I think it is going to be, from a reality perspective, very difficult for us to go. While the need may be there, going to be difficult for us to go out to the taxpayers again and say, we need more again. I just don't see how we can go do that when we have this building going up, already having seen our most recent tax bill. I think we're going to be hard pressed to get anybody to buy into it. I think that's just the reality of the situation. Whether the need's there or not, that is sort of what we're dealing with.
So I agree that it's likely to be difficult, but I also agree that I don't believe it's my job to determine the level of service that the community should have. I think offering the community the opportunity to make that decision on a regular basis is the most appropriate democratic solution we have. Please? Yeah. Actually, before you do that, anybody else on the board that wants to, or we move to?
Well, it's been clear to me, having sat through this 6 times now, that we've been doing this year to year to year. Some years are far worse than others, but there have been no years where we haven't removed services in what is supposed to be a level service budget. We are not providing programs today that we did 6 years ago, because we've just had to continue to slice away in order to make it through to the next year. And I've known that the day would come that we needed to ask, and we did that day. We did that day a couple of years ago. Because we didn't get the result that we think is needed, that doesn't take away our responsibility to inform the public of the need and have them make the decision. So I think that we need to think hard and long about what we ask and how we explain what we are asking, what the impact will be once more, because the impact of the last failure of the override we are still feeling to this day, which is that we are still facing these death by 1,000 cuts. So I would just want to make sure that we're clear-eyed about there's going to be, I think one of the things that we were successful at in the school project was explaining clearly the alternatives and what the best possible alternative was. And we got support because that was the best possible alternative. And I think that if we can come up with a request that we can satisfy, that we have done everything possible to make sure that we have managed our own fiscal house, and yet there are still these needs, and we can explain clearly what they are and why those costs are necessary, then I think we should go ahead.
Okay. Anyone else before I open to the floor? Okay, Karen.
So, two quick things. 100% agree with you that if you can get the information out there earlier next year, I think it's in our town charter that the school department is supposed to be presenting their budget well before now.
So we did present our budget a couple times, Karen.
Well, no, I think it's supposed to be like December 31st. We'd have to go back and look in the charter, so that's number one.
And Karen, it was presented in December.
No, I think it's the final budget. I think
No, it's not the final budget.
So we'd have to go back and look, because there was discussion about this at Finance Committee last week. But now I'm feeling a little bit deceived. A year and a half ago, not even that, I sat on this stage exactly where Mr. Grady is, and I looked at you folks when you presented us with the new school building. And I said, with the building of the new school building, are we going to see an increase of staff and the need for more people to hire at that school? And you told me no. So to be sitting here now in that seat, listening to you tell me something opposite, that is unacceptable to me. I don't know what changed between now and then, but if you're going to ask us after telling us no, they're going to have to be valid, straightforward requests of why we need them. Because to all of a sudden hear that we need to hire more people after you flat out told me no, that there's something wrong there.
So let me address that, Karen. So some of what we need is we need some maintenance people. Sure. And part of the reason we need them now is because we've been reducing maintenance people, right? So we're not at the level of maintenance and custodial staff that we were, I don't believe.
No.
And we may not be, but you told me no. I mean, I don't even want an explanation for it. You guys told me no when I asked that question.
Right.
So now to come back and tell me something else. When you come forward with that budget next year, and it includes a line item for additional staff at that building,
Yep.
you're going to have to be clear of what it is. Because
Absolutely.
you can't tell me no 1 minute and then turn around 2 years because now you've decided that you've had a change of heart and tell me that you
I'm
need
sorry,
something.
Karen, but I think you have to keep in mind the baseline, right? So if we had the maintenance staff we had at the time that we were talking
You knew
about,
what we had when I asked that question.
I'm not sure that we knew what we were going to have next year, right? We're really down to very little custodial staff next
So
year.
you're not asking, you wouldn't be asking for an increase of staff because of the new building. You'd be asking for an increase of staff to get you back to where you were.
We would be doing that anyway, yes. But the point is that we're stretching really hard right now.
Everybody is, though.
Right.
Everybody.
But once we add all the extra square footage of the new building, we're going to be beyond the breaking point. And so it's really recovering to a point where we were at the time that we were talking about the new building, because we have had reductions in those sorts of areas, because those don't lead to direct. I mean, Mr. Londa is regularly asking for additional support, and we're regularly denying it because those positions don't provide direct hands-on educational benefit to our students. Okay.
Carl Luck again. I figure if I'm going to go down in flames, I should go down big. But I have the same concern, but I was in a different place. I went to the building presentation at the high school and took the tour, so I was convinced by the time the meeting started. But in the meeting, I personally stood up and asked, are there going to be any additional operating costs? Yep. And was told in a flash, no. Not even discussed, no. I've been at some meetings, as you know.
Yep.
And it's not, and I believe when you come back with the list, it's not going to be just maintenance. I've already heard that there's a lot of technology, and this is a quote, there's a lot of technology in the new school, we're going to need a new IT person. I've heard that it's because of its size, we need an extra nurse, And I've also been told we haven't finished looking at all the needs yet, driven by the building. So you're going to have to dig out of that hole, because we took on a huge tax burden, which hasn't even hit us yet. It's going to hit us right about when you're brave enough, if you are, to go ask for an override, which I certainly would not support. Maybe partially because I was told it wasn't going to be needed. So I'm waiting to see how you figure out how you're going to hold to that statement that was made to the public.
I just want to comment on what your statement was, which was that you're not going to vote it because we were told it wasn't needed. We've never said that an override wasn't needed. We said it several years ago that it was needed.
Not override, I'm sorry. I didn't say override. I said additional operating costs. I asked clearly,
I thought you said
asked
override.
clearly, will additional operating costs be required? And you, Mr. Mackin, said no. That's all.
And one thing on the technology piece, you were at the meeting where we were discussing technology, and I think we are looking at ways of increasing the services with this building without increasing the operational costs. I mean, I think you yourself said to me, hey, you're trying to find a way that is going to increase the service without increasing that cost. And I mean, I do have a lot of faith in the people that are making these recommendations that we will try to find a way. One other comment, if I may, for Karen and for both of you, is that the reality is sometimes the realities change, right? And there are things that are going to happen. You said you're a businessman yourself. You know that sometimes costs increase. It just happens, right? Look at what our friends who provide us electricity did to us this year. Holy cow, that stuff is going to happen. And so when we try not to increase operational costs. Yeah, we don't expect an increase in operational costs. It just happens. I mean, that's the unfortunate situation.
Yeah, first, I would like to say I was really happy, impressed at that meeting that I was at when you were talking about the technology and the what do you call the program? One-on-one. Thank you. Yes, and some real breakthroughs, and I mean, that was exciting, because I was getting a little worried about that, and then I saw some opportunities that were going to make it, not only work, but, financially work pretty well. So I credit you on that, and I hope that continues in that regard. I understand uncertainty in business. However, I wasn't born yesterday. I've been through a lot of these things and a lot of meetings and a lot of town buildings and a lot of town facilities, and heard time after time after time, there's no increase in operating costs, and every time there have been. So anyone who thinks they're going to build a new building with more square footage, more technology, and can stand up and say absolutely no operating cost, it just gets a little older.
That's fair.
It's not an unknown. I don't think that's a surprise, to tell you the truth. So I'm really happy, mostly here not to complain, but to sort of challenge you to figure out how to do it without more staffing. That maybe you have a chance of getting a 2.5 for all these other programs if you can hold that bargain that you made with us, that you can get into that building without more staffing because of the building. So just my challenge.
Sure. Great. More effective.
Mr. Ebersole.
Bob Ebersole, 94 Main Street. Not only for the schools, but for other departments, staffing is our largest expense. Taxes actually go up about 3.5% in Lunenburg because of new growth. And I would challenge any department to look at its staffing contracts between steps and pay raises. If they're more than 3.5%, it may not be sustainable. So we have to look at that part of when we do a budget for 1 year, have a budget right next to it to say, what's going to happen? The town manager does a 5-year projection, but when we do something this year, we need to know what's it going to be next year. And whether an override is going to solve that or not, it may solve it for a short time, but then if it's going to be back in again, the voters are going to need to know that it's not going to happen over and over again. So it's certainly not just the school departments, it's the other town departments as well, but when you've got a 3.5% increase and staffing by itself is more than 3.5%, retirement solve it for a little while because it reduces, brings in people at a lower grade when they're initially working, but if it brings it back up, we're not sustainable on that part. that may
just-
need to change.
Right, so just for clarity, on the last negotiations we had, our estimate was that the lifetime cost of the contract was less than 2.5% per year. That does not mean that the individual years are all below 2.5% per year. It means the average over the lifetime of the contract. And so that was the analysis we did before we went into the contract. Okay. Because I think the long-term averages are the important numbers. Ms. Luck.
Phyllis Luck. I just had one question. You know, we talked about the longevity retirement. Is there a cap on that?
Absolutely, yeah.
And what is the cap?
I don't remember. Do you? It's in the contract,
Yeah,
maybe.
it is.
Maybe Ms. Foyle remembers.
So it's some...
The cap has not been going up.
Mary?
The cap as the whole sum or cap?
Yeah, right, that it won't go ahead.
I think it's,
My recollection is it's 120 is the cap.
But I don't think we've ever hit that.
we've never hit that, and it hasn't gone up. I mean, it's been that level for a couple of contracts anyway.
Is there any thought to changing it in the next contract?
We'll address that in the next contract. We're certainly not going to start negotiating a contract here tonight. And I won't be here, so someone else can do that. So sure, yeah. Any other questions?
And Greg, I'm right there with you. Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other comments, questions?
Just one more in public comment, different topic. I just wanted to thank the folks that put together the volunteer recognition little event yesterday. It was very nice to see a number of people from other boards, and it was nice to take the folks took the time to come and to give some appreciation to the folks that volunteer their time.
What was that?
Okay, and that's enough, I guess, on public comment for tonight. So let's see, FinCom, there was the budget hearing last week. We addressed some of the questions that were raised last week, and I think in our discussion tonight, I know there's another FinCom meeting tomorrow to finalize their budget recommendation. So I think it's 7 o'clock in this room. Any school council updates?
April 8th.
Probably picking up both.
Okay. Primary school is going to meet next Wednesday, April 8th.
Turkey Hill will meet April 28th.
Okay. PTO?
Meeting Monday, April 13th.
All right, policy, we do not currently have plans to meet unless something comes up that needs our attention. Capital planning?
We met yesterday to change some recommendations and include the school technology piece in
Okay.
our recommendations.
Excellent.
Okay. And are you expecting that to be your last meeting for the year?
Yeah, for this budget, yes.
Okay, great. Wellness advisory?
Next meeting is April 29th.
Okay. Paxal?
The last meeting was canceled, and I don't believe the next one has been scheduled yet.
Okay, reuse committee I know is meeting Monday.
Monday, yep, the 13th.
They have not met for a while, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The 6th, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say that's Monday, this Monday, yeah, okay.
Transition reconfiguration, Ms. Combs? Anything to report?
Nothing new in terms of, we're still working on the FAQ for the staff, and we have the overall year-and-a-half plan that we're finalizing, and we'll be putting that out there probably right after April break.
Great. Okay, diversity advisory committee we just appointed, so I'm sure we'll be getting everybody together to meet before too long. And the start time subcommittee, how's that going?
The Start Time Subcommittee met this morning. We met with Mr. Spadafino, principal from the high school, and Mr. McAuliffe, the athletic director, just looking at some of the information from them regarding the challenges that they see and have what they've spoken to the staff, and Mr. McAuliffe has spoken to the district regarding if we could, move our game times and things like that. And it seems to be moving in a positive direction where we think we will be able to start at a later time. We do not have that time yet. There's information still to be gathered before we determine, exactly what time that will be. in trying to keep the younger students and not have them going to school really early. So we're working on that, but we are moving forward and have not scheduled our next meeting to date. But just to let everyone know, we will be, I think our thought is in the fall at this point, holding some public forums, putting together FAQ sheets with information about this, hoping to talk to people at the open houses in the fall and, really get information out and allow people an opportunity to join the discussion.
Just so everybody's clear, that, it may not have been totally clear when the previous advisory committee was here, but they recommended clearly that we should move the start time for our high school to later in the day, and we are taking that very seriously. We have a start time subcommittee who's working diligently with our administration to put together a plan that would let us do that, so that we can then socialize it with the community and all of our stakeholders, and there would presumably be a vote on that sometime before the end of this calendar year, with a goal, if we move forward with it, of implementing it for the beginning of the FY17 school year. So I think that's really exciting. I think we're sort of on the cutting edge of schools in that area, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Okay, topics for future discussion. I'm not going to schedule these until we get through our meeting with the reuse building committee, if you don't mind. But we have two topics: our district improvement strategic plan, and then an update on the one-to-one computing technology plan that we asked for at our last workshop. Are there other things that anybody has in mind that we should be talking about? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thanks. So